You should watch this video in its entirety because if you don't, you could end up regretting moving to the Carolinas. Some of the people that are picking up and moving all the way across the country to live in the Carolinas ultimately end up coming to regret that decision 1 or 2 years later. Actually, I have a client who moved here in April and they're already contacting me about selling their home and moving back. So today we're going to talk about 10 or so reasons why you might really regret moving to the Carolinas and end up leaving. Hello family, I'm Sir Ashley, and if this is your second or third time you've seen me and you're not subscribed, that is the universe telling you that you need to be subscribed to my channel. In my previous videos, I've talked about money, real estate, and what it's like to live, work, eat, play right here in North and South Carolina. So be sure to check out my other videos after you've watched this one. And after you watch those videos, if you have any questions about what it's like living or working in North or South Carolina, make sure you leave a comment on that video, or you can reach out to me via phone call, text, or email. Well, let's dive into the topic of this video. You're going to get 10 or so reasons why people that make an effort to move all the way to North or South Carolina end up regretting their decision and either move to another location in the Carolinas or end up leaving the Carolinas completely. And some might wonder, sir, aren't you a real estate agent? Why are you telling people about these things? First, I've been reading the comments, and I want to say thank you for leaving all the comments and sharing your experiences about what it's like living in the Carolinas. But some people react negatively to my videos and assume that I hate the Carolinas, but that couldn't be further from reality. I've lived primarily in the Carolinas since 2002, and I love it here, and I'm raising my family in the beautiful Carolinas. But I want to inform and educate everyone of the realities of what is here right here in the Carolinas, because it does nobody any good for people to pick up, move here, buy a home, do all that work, and then to only find out, hey, this isn't really what I thought it would be, and this is not a place for me and my family, and end up having to leave and try again. The first thing that causes people to regret moving to the Carolinas is how slow it is. The pace of living here in the Carolinas is considerably slower than some of the other states up north and out west, and even some of the other southern states. Even if you live in one of the larger cities such as Charlotte, Charleston, Raleigh, or Columbia, you will still get let down by the pace of the city. The slow pace of life in the South is the main cause of regret for a lot of people who move to the Carolinas. Look, when I first moved to the Carolinas, I was in Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill area, and I had just left the DC area, and I hated it. Hated is an understatement. I hated how slow it was here in the Carolinas, and I legitimately despised it and felt extremely bored. Yes, there are things to do here in the Carolinas, but the options and opportunities to do those things are few and far between when you compare it to larger cities like DC. So my advice to you and anyone moving to the Carolinas from a larger city and you aren't used to the slow pace of life in the Carolinas is to come here with little to no expectations. Do not try to compare the Carolinas to where you're coming from, because the Carolinas will let you down. One thing real quick that doesn't fit neatly into the topic of this video, but people moving to the Carolinas should know this. You should know that other people who moved to the Carolinas 10 or plus years ago feel like it's their job, their duty, to tell others not to move here and how they don't want you here. Now, personally, I can see how somebody born and raised in the Carolinas can feel this way or say such things, but literally, people who have moved here in the 90s or early 2000s are upset. They're visibly angry about all the people moving here, and they enjoy telling transplants to not come to the Carolinas. I think it's a weird dynamic, and pot meet kettle. Now let's move on to the next reason people regret moving here to the Carolinas, and it's mainly because of the weather. Now I hear this reason from many of the people that come from the northeast portion of the United States. They experience a spring and summer here in the Carolinas, and they realize that they were just not cut out for this climate or the pollen. South Carolina is among one of the worst places for people with allergies. And also, currently North Carolina is listed as having some of the highest allergy rates in the United States. And the main culprit for the allergens here in the Carolinas are the oak trees, the sweet gum, and the birch trees, according to pollen.com. Now, in regard to the heat and the humidity, I shouldn't have to tell you this. We're in the South. It gets drastically hot, and personally, between July and August, I really don't go outside that much because it gets about 95, 98, but then the humidity is what makes it totally unbearable. So if you are not used to that type of heat, the Carolinas might not be a place for you, and you might end up regretting your decision to move here. But on a positive note, North Carolina is home to one of the least polluted states in the country. A new air pollution study finds that North Carolina gets raving reviews regarding the condition of its air, while South Carolina gets mixed reviews regarding air quality. The next reason people regret living in the Carolinas is because they don't like small town living. Yes, Carolina does have some bigger cities, but the majorities of both states is comprised of small towns, and even their bigger cities feel like small towns. If you live in Columbia, Greensboro, or Durham, you know exactly what I'm talking about. While their population on paper may cause it to be classified a medium-sized city, in actuality, it's pretty reminiscent of high school, where you aren't trying to be in people's business, but the city just isn't that big enough and everyone crosses social circles, so it's hard not to know what everyone else is doing, and even those medium-sized cities have a small town feel. If you are like myself and is someone who's an introverted extrovert, meaning you like to stay to yourself most of the time, but occasionally like to go out and get re-energized from the city life and going out, then the larger cities in the Carolinas are perfect for you. But if you want that constant energy that the big city life brings you, you might regret moving to the Carolinas because we don't have that constant buzz of a big city. If you move to the Carolinas, yes, it's going to be an entirely different culture, almost like a culture shock if you come from a big city, and it's going to feel different. But people here are more laid back and easygoing. Another reason people end up regretting moving to the Carolinas is because they didn't realize that you have to have a car. If you want to get around from place to place, you're going to need reliable transportation. Yes, there are some public transportation in the bigger cities and even some of the smaller cities, but it's anemic at best. And even in the big cities like Charleston, Columbia, Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte, the public transportation system is awful. Yes, we are making improvements, but that does not negate the fact that you will need a car, or as they say it in the South, you will need a vehicle to get from point A to point B 98% of the time. And if you're used to using public transportation, you're going to be frustrated by the lack of transportation options. Yes, you can always use Uber and Lyft, but that can get pretty costly pretty quickly. Real quick, one thing that many people don't realize or fully grasp when they move to North or South Carolina is that when people in North or South Carolina say it's just around the corner, that really means it's about a 15 to 20 minute car ride away. And if you don't have a car, it's going to be very tough to get there. Since we are talking about cars and vehicles, the next reason people regret moving to the Carolinas ties right into the previous one, and that is the vehicle and personal property tax. North Carolina and South Carolina have very low property tax compared to most other states. And if you live in South Carolina, your owner-occupied home is taxed very little compared to the majority of the states here in our country. But people who move to the Carolinas regret that they did not research and realize that while you paid lower property taxes, you will have to pay yearly, yes, yearly vehicle tax. And as I said earlier, you're going to need a car to get around in the Carolinas, so you're going to have to pay this annual vehicle tax. And if you drive an electric vehicle, our states impose an additional tax on you because you get to avoid the taxes at the gas pump. How progressive of them. Most people that move here from up north are shocked by the vehicle tax and they initially have some regret. But I tell them to break down the numbers and factor in the real estate tax and the property tax here in the Carolinas and compare that to the real estate taxes or property taxes they are paying where they came from. And more times than not, they realize that they get the better deal by living in the Carolinas. Now, moving on. This one is a little weird to me, but people regret moving to the Carolinas because they are not outdoor people. If you live in the Carolinas, chances are you're going to be taking part in some outdoor activity. Whether it be fishing, surfing, skiing, camping, it's outdoors. And if you aren't an outdoor person, or at least open to exploring the outdoors, you may soon regret moving to the Carolinas. Our concerts are outdoors, our football games are outdoors, and if you don't appreciate being outdoors, you're probably not going to last living in the Carolinas. Now, as I mentioned before, I am a transplant and I've been primarily living in the Carolinas for about 20 years. And I honestly don't like being outside in July and August, but being outdoors has grown on me. Whether it's chilling on a boat or enjoying a college or NFL football game to hiking. Yes, you might catch me out on Crowder's Mountain hiking with my daughter. She loves it and I have come to like it. There's also Carowinds Amusement Park, which is on the border of North and South Carolina, and that is outdoor fun for the entire family, as well as the U.S. National Whitewater Center. Let's go to number 7. Actually, I'm not quite sure what number we're on, but 7 seems right. Now, I'm not sure why this is a mystery to a lot of people and why I believe people are shocked by it. But number 7 is wildlife. People come to the Carolinas and don't realize that yes, we have cities with a substantial population, but there is a substantial amount of wildlife here in the Carolinas. You have coyotes, deers, and in certain parts of the Carolinas, you also have bears. You will come across snakes and raccoons, and as I mentioned in one of my other videos about the Carolinas, I shared with you how terrified I am of snakes, and a lot of you could relate and automatically wrote off the Carolinas. But I don't quite understand why you would do so quickly, because in literally every state in the continental United States, so that only excludes Alaska and Hawaii, there are snakes. There are snakes in every state. So unless you plan on moving to Hawaii or Alaska, just because the Carolinas have snakes, that should not be your sole reason to decide not to move here. Nor should you allow the fact that there's snakes in our state be the sole reason why you regret on being here and end up leaving. People also regret moving to the Carolinas because of the politics. When you move to the Carolinas, you have to know that you're moving to the South. Yes, you have some larger cities in the Carolinas, in North Carolina specifically, that are liberal, but for the most part, once you leave these bigger cities, you're going to be in a heavily conservative population. North Carolina is a purple state, and South Carolina is still very, very much red. And if I'm being honest, I'm not quite sure what either party stands for nowadays, other than being a cult of personality. Conservatives and liberal principles seems to sway and differ depending on who's in office. But for what it's worth, please know the political leanings and environments of the area before moving into it and regretting moving into that certain part of the Carolinas. Now, one of the main reasons people who move to the Carolinas end up regretting their decision is because of the low wages they receive here in the Carolinas. I've heard countless conversations where people complain about the wages and the job that they have. So if you're coming to the Carolinas and think the Carolinas is going to magically fix all of your problems or be that end-all be-all problem solver for your financial and personal problems just to disappear, I'm sorry, but the Carolinas just isn't that place. And I encourage everyone who moves here to be gainfully employed or have gainful employment already lined up before you get here. I also encourage everyone to develop a skill, a trade, or have a degree in a specific in-demand industry before moving here, because there are tons of jobs and opportunities right here in the Carolinas, and a lot of them pay very, very well. But if you get a job or have a job that doesn't require any specialized skill or knowledge, then I don't know what you expect from the Carolinas. People's wages in general are based on the value they have to the public or the specific employer. But with all that I just said, now, presently is the time of the employee. Everyone is looking to hire a quality employee, and a lot of basic or starter positions are coming with signing bonuses right now. So if you've been at a job for a while and have developed a unique skill set, it is your time to shine. It is your time to seek a raise or to shop around for other jobs. I personally have a handful of friends or colleagues who recently leveraged their current position into $20,000, $30,000, even $50,000 annual pay increases. So traditionally, wages in the Carolinas have been subpar, but now is your time to take advantage of the current work environment and have employers compete for you. So there you have it, about 10 reasons why people who move to the Carolinas might end up regretting it. I'm not saying that these are positive or these are negative, but I do want to inform and educate you if you're looking to move to the Carolinas so you know exactly what to expect. I love the Carolinas, but you do your research and know the area that you're moving to or thinking of moving to. I've also done several other videos talking about the Carolinas, so please be sure to check those out. Now, if you want to move and buy a home in the Carolinas, just give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I'm Sir Ashley. Talk soon.